When I turned around, I saw vans. It was a Kumbi and then a police van. When the police came out, first thing they said was, "Well, listen for now." And they were like, "When she see van, man." They were not asking me, they were telling me, "This is what you did when she see van."
This is the Dr. Cooking Show. Thank you very much for being here. Welcome to the Dr. Cooking Show. As we wrap up this series, I wanted to bring us back together to the theme of community love. In this final episode in particular, we are going to look at community action, the strength that fuels that action and sustains it, but the love that community provides us to be able to do this work long term. Thank you very much for being part of this journey. Remember always that you are the community. I'm extremely honored to bring with you today some of my two favorite people, Kanya, Cekeshe, and Yolanda Dyantyi. You may know them as the Fees Must Fall activists who took the system head on and took a really personal cost to that act of activism. I've known them both for a very long time, but I do know that there's some few things that I would like to know a little bit better before we get to the deeper conversation about life and their journeys, and of course to take you along with us on that. So I'm going to start with you, Kanya.
Yo.
Let's play a little game. Let me see. What do I not know about you? Do you prefer burgers or pizza?
Burger. Pizza's not food.
Oh, do you agree?
Guys,
Burgers or pizza?
Food.
Pizza. Actually, both. Like both, but
on a good
yeah.
Pizza's not
on a
food.
good day. Okay, so let's do this. Do you prefer gospel or pop music?
Gospel music.
What's your favorite hymn?
Yo, Bam Bam Zalwane right now.
Kawichoge.
Yo, guys, I don't want the spot.
Sign on the spot.
Give Yolanda to help.
Okay, I can do the bass.
Yeah.
I better just do yes.
Oh yes. Okay, but do you prefer gospel or pop? Then we
Gospel. On the top of my mind is Yesu. Wena ungumhlobo. Okay. Wena ungumhlobo.
I love it.
That's how we clearly.
Not long enough, but I love that because it reminds me of those moments, right? That brought all of you and me together in terms of the moments, the history, right?
Yeah.
Of that activism and those moments. So take us back there, Kanya. How did you find out about the actual protests?
Footprint Media Academy. It was also in Auckland Park. It was a media school. So at the time, I had a passion of writing stories. So the dream was to be a director. So I thought that not just being a director, but also being a part of the whole entire media industry in itself. So I wanted to learn how everything works. The camera works, the sound, the lighting. So I enrolled into a Footprint Media Academy. Tried first UJ, but then I didn't qualify to get NSFAS. So I got rejected. So then I had to look for a college that could give me what I wanted. After was too expensive. So then I found Footprint Media Academy. Yeah. And then how I ended up in Fees Must Fall, I watched it on the news the day it started. And then on the day, Baba also said to me that I did not listen. Maybe I should have.
Maybe that's part of that you have.
Maybe I should have, but I didn't listen. Fast forward, I ended up being a part of the Fees Must Fall movement the very next day, actually. I used to skip school. I used to leave early. I used to try and always attend like the meetings that we would have as students. Some were too late, so I couldn't be a part of them. So
Kanya, you were not even adverts, right? So take us back to those moments of Fees Must Fall and the organizing that was happening.
So for me, it was, I think, a relatable experience for everyone else who was not a part of the leadership. You know, we would gather. Sometimes the meetings would be too late for me to be able to attend because sometimes it would be late at night. But usually I would wake up early in the morning. Sometimes I'd even bunk school. And I would go to Wits, and then we would gather at the Great Hall, I believe, right? And then we would then have the addressing, and then we would be given the mandates. If we were protesting, going from somewhere to somewhere, this is what we are protesting. Someone was arrested, we would march to Hillbrow police station and then demand their release, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The day I was arrested was the day, on that day, I left school early. And then I went to Wits. When I went to Wits, I met up with the protesters. And then I had not received the mandate at the time, so they relayed the message to me that the mandate was to close up the halls, the exam venues, because there was exam period at the time. So we went to, there's a hall at the back, in the science part, I forget the name. But so we were going to go close that hall. When we were going to go close the hall, I was walking with someone, I won't mention his name, but I was walking with a comrade. And when we got to the hall, I was trying to figure out how are we going to close this hall, right? And then I turned around because I wanted to tell him, okay, we can close it with a chain. If we can bring a chain, we can be able to close down this hall, right? We don't need a big chain, just need a small chain. I was turning around to relay that message to him. When I turned around, brother was gone. So when brother was gone and I was looking for him, I saw him turning the corner, right? I don't know whether he was running or walking fast, but anyway, I saw his foot, the back of his foot turning the corner. When I turned around, I saw vans, police van. It was a Kumbi and then a police van, and then it showed up. When the police came out, first thing they said was, "Well, listen, Funai."
Oh my!
And I thought to myself, "You mean Funai?" And they were like, "When she see van, when?" They were not asking me; they were telling me, "This is what you did when she see van," you know. And then I turned around and I saw some of our comrades because we left them at the steps, and then the comrade who I was with, I saw him. Then he returned, but when he returned, I was already getting arrested.
But he's walking.
He was coming in to protest my arrest, but it was late.
You feel that the comrade was not quite
I don't think it was
comrade.
Right? Yolanda, I mean, we know the hashtags. We had followed quite intensely. I think what was an intersectional movement at the time. For you, what was the story with Rhodes? And I know it was the university previously known
as Rhodes. Hey, you can't. Part of the decolonial project. Yeah, I mean, so 2015, that's when the Fees Must Fall movement erupted. So I was participating, getting my feel of the ground, what it really feels like to be an activist on the ground. So I participated with nothing too hectic, you know. And in 2016, though, as a result of some of the experiences that as women, and also maybe intersectional bodies, we were experiencing in the movement, we're feeling like issues of gender inequality were not being, addressed, but we were experiencing those violations within us as student leaders, right, in the movement. So then, because of all the experiences that had surfaced, not only from the Fees Must Fall space, but also just the everyday experience of being a student on campus, right, we then moved into 2016 with then the sort of idea or mandate that now we want to actually address this thing called rape culture. Okay, so then 2016, the SRC at Rhodes University, along with UCT and Stellenbosch, I think, came together and they started a campaign based on a section in the Constitution, which is Chapter 2.12, which essentially just speaks to body autonomy and integrity that we all have the right to. And so the campaign was an advocacy campaign, really just saying that, we're calling for safer spaces on campus and this and that. And so that was the start of the rape culture protest in 2016 at Rhodes. But then the response against, always the response when we get from management, they were really not coming to the table. They were not trying to engage. In fact, the first action of the campaign, of the Chapter 2.12 campaign, was putting posters on the university campus, which are just quotes from the experiences that we've had with engaging the system, and we want to report our rapists or perpetrators of abuse. Quotes that maybe be encouraged by somebody in management to actually push for mediation as opposed to going for litigation, right? So there's those different experiences, and also just the stats of how many people have been prosecuted and found guilty at Rhodes and so on and so forth. The university's immediate response was, to send the security CPU campus protection unit to take down those posters that even had the SRC logo, to say that this is something that even the student leadership approves. Exactly, right? So they took them down, and we obviously saw that as quite aggressive and not wanting to have a conversation. And so they were agitated. They were agitating us, we were agitating back, and then a few days later, the RE reference list then was a part of our new tactic. We sat down as, a group of like 30 women or so, and we were like, guys, actually, let's talk about our experience. We keep talking about rape culture, and perhaps we know a person being raped and this and that, but who here amongst us, as the people who are participating in this advocacy campaign, who has actually experienced what we're talking about, right? And let's talk about it. Let's write a list. We have to put a name to, a face rather to the names. And then we drafted the list. In that meeting, we were trying to gather ourselves. Well, what's the next step? Since this is how the university is engaging us, this is the response to our queries, essentially. So we drafted the list, but no, we didn't say, okay, this is the list. We titled it, okay, this is the rape list, number 1 to 13. We just said reference list. An element of creativity was also needed in that. We came up with 13 names amongst a group of under 30 women, 13. Some of them are multiple serial rapists, right? The list that we came up with. And we're like, okay, so what do we do with this list? Let's post it. Let's actually see what we believe to be the truth, if it's going to resonate with the broader student body. And just by posting that list and it going live and viral on Facebook, literally in 5 minutes, people, they were just, these are rapists. People, not us. We didn't say, are you referenced? This is a list for rape accused individuals. It was common knowledge. That's how powerful, that list was. And in fact, just this reality of rape culture, how imminent it was at Rhodes. And so then it started online. People just tagging people calling people rapists. And then, within like 30 minutes, we were organizing ourselves on a Sunday evening. It was on the 17th of April. We organized ourselves. We went, we gathered at the Steve Biko lawns. There's a building called Steve Biko Union Buildings, and there's lawns there. We gathered, and the mandate surfaced from there that what are we doing with this list? In fact, because we've had the Chapter 212 advocacy campaign, the university response was negative. They're not trying to take us seriously. So what do we do now? And the mandate was, we are confronting the rapists. We want them gone, want them excluded, we want them whatever, but we don't want to go to class tomorrow with the same people. People were testifying and people were speaking about their experiences that actually I was raped by this person. Let's go, Monsieur Yolanda. Let's go to that race and find that boy. And essentially, that was just the sort of vigilante, I say quote unquote, because the university calls it vigilante acts, but they really weren't. So then that's my involvement, really, in a nutshell, of where my advocacy and how then my relationship with Rhodes began, like negative relationship. And ended. Yeah, so there's that.
How has life been? And yeah, man, how's your heart?
On the spot. How's my heart? My heart is healed right now. Yeah, it took a while though. How has it been since then? It's been rough. I think you would know better than anyone, Doc. It's been rough. Had to go through tons of therapy, counseling, church. Guys, guys, God has been my anchor in so many ways. Yeah. But I think through it all, right now, I'm in a far better place than I was, because I was broken, and I was a mess.
What happened?
What happened? So many people don't know this, but during my sentence, while I was in prison, I felt sick. It was the stress of everything, and so when I was sick, it got really bad, and the facilities in prison were not adequate to take care of my needs. So I was diagnosed with schizophrenia and clinical depression, but I wasn't even eating, and I was hearing voices, and there was just so many things happening that were, I wouldn't say went with what I was diagnosed with. So the medication, I took it, but then it as worse. And then as time went, eventually we had to get outside help. That's when our doc came in. We had to get outside help. We had to get outside specialists to come in and actually re-diagnose what I was diagnosed with. And actually, we had to implement a different kind of help. But anyway, Pansendafa, guys. Pansendafa, guys. Yeah.
No, and we have
as a result of Zabalaza. And yeah, a lot of people don't know that. Yeah.
And Yolanda, I mean, your story was also quite visible, different in a way, but also tell me how your heart is.
I mean, right now, I really can resonate with what Kanya just said, with the fact that my heart feels. I feel like I'm healed right now, but obviously it's a continuous journey. You know, I think I've had to heal from the past, 7-8 years of public scrutiny that came with, just being excluded, being targeted by the institutions, institutions of higher learning. I've been going through that process of really just coming back to myself, I think, and just like remembering, a better part here, the healed part of me before I was traumatized, by my experience of being a student, being an activist.
Because that experience changes.
Hey, literally, because when I look back at the time that I spent at Rhodes as a student, and even the years that I spent just trying to clear my name, after my exclusion, I'm a completely different person, today. But obviously I carry those lessons, the experiences with me. So, I mean, it's a journey. We are healing. And, obviously God definitely is an anchor, centers in my life. Spirituality also it plays a huge role.
So, Yolanda, what you're saying gets me thinking about it, that, of course, as people, we will change. But I think what strikes me about both of your journeys is that the system that was supposed to protect you, the space where your dreams were meant to be nurtured to come true, is where you were broken. How do you process that? How has that been for you to really just be in that reality?
It's triggering. It's honestly so triggering. I think part of my healing has had to confront the fact that people like me, Black women, young women, generally right now exist in a time or a space where they consideration of our identities really lies on the peripheries. I don't know if I'm making sense, right? And so I was confronted with that, realizing that me being a Black woman at Rhodes University, I'm just a stat, I'm just feeling I'm part of the quota that they need to meet in terms of, maybe, what is this? Onboarding, bringing in more Black students, right? So I had to deal with that kind of confrontation and kind of really understanding where my power lies, or trying to search for my power and my voice and all of that. So it really has been difficult. I mean, it's even hard to kind of express it, because on the one hand, it's I'm going there to kind of better myself, my future, have all these hopes and aspirations, right? And then I get there and I'm confronted with the people who are my oppressors, even my parents' oppressors, and confronted with that legacy that still stands strong. And so I think part of my work, just healing and understanding my advocacy, why I also fought, is that it wasn't good. It certainly wasn't good enough just for me to accept the status quo, perhaps, or what the university kind of, said or declared over my life. And so through that, then I've had to learn how to fight. I've had to learn how to swim in deep waters, when I've been thrown into without my consent. It's just been a thing. It's different. It's a difficult space to be in, but then you realize that's not just in the institution. It's every day when it's outside. Yeah.
Kanya, you were part of a student community that mobilized.
Yeah.
And some of the most organized mobilization we had witnessed. And yet, you call it chaos now.
We were causing chaos.
You were causing chaos. And yet, when the time came, you took the fall as an individual.
Yeah.
And that must have hit in a very different way.
It was so hard, dog. Especially because Amapolice, they gave me they offered a deal. They said,
okay, wait, what do you mean?
Name. So the day I was arrested, they said, give us names, right? This was now before they went to my home, and then they took evidence without a warrant, by the way. But so they said, give us names. And if you give us names, then we will look at you possibly getting house arrest or community service. But should you not, then we will push for you to get prison sentence.
And they say she take the fall.
Yeah, essentially.
And these are the names of the people you were organizing. These must fall.
Exactly. So they wanted particular individuals, not just me. Because remember, at the same time, there's a lot of burning of buses and damage to property. And so they wanted leaders that were responsible or that they could hold accountable for all of that. And then I chose to keep quiet. I chose to keep quiet. And so, and then I was sentenced.
So when the process happened, did you feel isolated? Did you feel supported? Did you feel in community?
I was alone, dog. I don't know if you are aware of this. I was alone. The day I was sentenced, I was alone. It was a very short trial, by the way.
It was
2 weeks, like a week and a half. It was a very short trial. Very quick. And the day I was sentenced, I thought that it was just going to be another trial hearing. And then when I got there, it was an hour. I don't even remember what was said. We had a short adjournment. And then when we came back, just after tea, I know that the judge...
that thing.
Yeah. So
when he decentralized that thing.
He hit the what do we call it?
The gavel.
Gavel, right? Yeah. And then my fate was decided.
But that sounds to me like listening to an apartheid story.
Yeah.
This happened to you in democratic South Africa as a young person struggling for free
education.
Education.
Which honestly I also didn't really need to be a part of. But because I believed in the movement and I believed that this was bigger than all of us, I believe that this was something that we need as a collective, so that my cousins, my sister, my brother, my friends can have the equal, because education is one of the fastest ways we can address inequality within our society. So I believed in the movement. I believed in the dream that was being, put in our faces that we needed to fight for. And obviously me being a leftist, I was like, I'm there. So then I went.
And we expected you to say it was it.
Not choice.
It's not a choice. And it was so sad because at the same time, our parents, and I'm referring to the police officers, were the ones who were shooting at us, and our parents also were the ones who were like, but it wasn't just about the disruption that was there. Protests are naturally disruptive, and they'll be damned.
They're designed to be disruptive,
So, but it was the fact that South Africa was choosing, not all of South Africa, but there was a good amount of people who were choosing to turn a blind eye to what we were standing up for. And then I got expelled from the school that I was in. And then that also just further deepened my isolation, Doc, because now I had no school. Now and the day I was sentenced, I literally felt like I had nothing.
Sure.
Besides the fact that I knew that my parents were at work, my siblings were at school. But when I looked at the benches, the benches in the court, it was empty. There was no one there. And then I had to go back down to the cells, knowing that I'm not even going back to... I'm not going back home.
Jeez.
And so that was a very dark experience. And honestly, I didn't even have the strength to cry because I was too scared to cry. Because now I had to switch my mindset to Muti.
Now you are a sentence.
Exactly. Now I'm officially going to be thrown in with criminals. I had to switch to trying to be as tough as I possibly can be in a very difficult situation. Yeah.
And Yolanda, you spoke about being a Black woman in the periphery. Did you find your experience of how then the system responded to you was that extreme and that intense because
I'm a Black woman.
You are a Black woman and you are in the periphery, right? How did you experience your fight back, and what did it take for you to keep saying, I'm actually going to fight for myself?
Just listening to Kanya, I didn't have that experience of having to be thrown, in prison and seeing but my future also was actually deterred by just simply by an email. I actually got a phone call from my lawyers when my academic career just came to a halt, when I was excluded and I was found guilty for things that I was not even able to, testify or even prove my innocence, It was like a Friday, and I was mid my exams, and I just got the phone call from my lawyers telling me that, yeah, we got an email from the university's lawyers, it's done, in my absence. I hadn't even testified. And mind you, I'm excluded there and there. By 5 o'clock, my fingerprints will be disconnected or disabled from this institution. So going on campus.
Kicked out.
Yes, I'm a trespasser from 5 p.m. on the 17th of November. I'll be a trespasser. So, like at the time I was also living off campus. So at least I had that ability to figure things out, because I couldn't even imagine what it would have been like if I was on campus. I'd have to vacate instantly. But, it's honestly the support. For me, it's the community that held me. From the moment the university was on my back targeting me, right? And they made it clear from the beginning that we want her gone, and the university's management is going to push for the harsher sentence. Imagine being told this, you haven't even taken the stand, but you're told that either way, this is what's going to happen. Dr. Mabizela agakufuna. So we were working, we were trying to fight for my freedom, I guess, and my innocence and all of that under those conditions. And then I got excluded. And then it's just having to be confronted with the fact that, how do I tell my parents, my working class parents, my grandmother who was a domestic worker, that, listen, you worked all these years, sacrificed so many things, put me through, decent education systems just so I could get this paper that she didn't get, that my mother didn't get, taken from me. So I think what carried me, obviously was the support of my counsel, the lawyers that I had. Honestly, they really instilled that faith. Mrs. Nomzamo Zonda, I always make reference to her. She's now the director of SERI, the Socioeconomic Rights Institute of South Africa. She was head of litigation at the time, and she's also a very spiritual person. She really believes in her work as well, right? And just the call for justice. So she really encouraged me. But look, you have two options: either you accept the fate of that you've been handed down, the decision of the university, and then you'll deal with whatever happens, or you just use this opportunity to fight back because you know the truth, right? And you weren't given that opportunity, and everyone is granted that. So I took it on.
Listening to both of you, it still blows my mind. This happened in a democratic, liberated South Africa.
Yeah.
I think that's part of what the trauma of your experiences lies. Because it's like we're reading or we're watching a movie, apartheid,
But we are the main stars. Sitting, staring. That's us.
The irony.
Yeah, right?
Against people who were in apartheid, standing against the oppressors at the time. But now it's their children.
Honestly, we used to say this when we were on the ground protesting for rape culture, right? The vice chancellor of my former university is a father of 2 children, girls. And we would say this, trying to speak to his morality, sense of just morality as a leader. Listen to us, we are students, we're crying, we're saying that we're being raped on your campus. We're calling for stricter interventions or response from management, right? A whole father of 2 daughters, he literally walked out of a meeting, the first meeting we had during the protest. On the 13th of May, actually was on my birthday.
I remember that.
He walked out because he was triggered by the words that students, women, us, the victims, we are using to express us, to appeal to his...
But how do we hold black leadership accountable, right?
When they don't be held accountable.
They don't.
They don't.
No, they really don't. And it was Bladen Zimande at the time, under the presidency of Jacob Zuma for us in Fismasford. And so we gave him a petition. And it wasn't even the first petition we gave. Gave him a petition, a detailed petition, with also, because we were consulting with specialists as to how can free education be realized and be achieved. So it wasn't just a matter of we want demands and we don't know how can this be done. It was this is what we want, this is what we're crying for, and this is how you can go about achieving it. It wasn't even considered. Within the day, we went to Union Building later on in that afternoon, and then he said that NSFAS will no longer be a bursary. Will no longer be a loan, it'll be now a bursary. That was what we got from all the mass protests, from the students dying.
0% increment.
And also the 0% increment. Yes, we got another plus when varsities decided to in-source workers. That was also another plus, because that was also another thing that we were fighting for and advocating for in Fismas for. But to be honest, guys, it wasn't what we were fighting for. We were not just fighting for INESFAS to be a bursary. We were fighting for free decolonized education for everyone.
Well, what do you think? Should you have done that?
Being part of the protest? Hey, Doc, honestly speaking,
Yeah.
I'm still healing from the regret that I have. I'm still healing from the regret. I'd be lying and it would be dishonest of myself to say that I would do it again. I'd be lying. I am still recovering from the regret because when I look at where my life is and I reflect on where it could have been, should I have chosen differently? Should I put myself first? I could have been, further.
And what does putting yourself first look like now?
What does it look like now? I think realizing that certain ideals I cannot allow myself to be a part of, not because I don't stand with it, but because of the fact that I do not know the motive behind it. I question the genuineness of people now. I don't want to be used and I don't want to feel like I'm being used. So I definitely choose myself first. It doesn't matter what the idea is or the movement is of the moment. I decide whether, do I genuinely want to be a part of this? Yes, I do. But how can I, thank you very much, how can I actually benefit or contribute towards this in a manner which will be safe for me? Because when I was down and under, only a handful of people actually came to see me. And when I was sick and almost dying, even fewer people came to see me. So no.
Meanwhile, everybody's graduating, right?
Everyone's graduating and look, nothing, it's a good thing.
And in that spirit, I'm going to invite you, Kanya, to share with us what you would like to raise your glass to as we celebrate and mark this moment being together.
To the fullness of our potentials being manifested and to the tomorrow and future we deserve.
To endless possibilities.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Cheers, man. Thank you. And cheers to all of you. And thank you so much for joining me and our beautiful guests for this final episode of the Dr. Tlaleng Mofokeng Show. Ke nna Dr. Tlaleng Mofokeng, ke nna ngwana go qwaqwa, ke le rata ka lerato la love. And I hope that all your wildest dreams come true and that indeed you know that you deserve all of the fullness, all of the love that is there to be offered in this world. And thank you for making this show a success. Please remember to like, to subscribe, to comment, and to share this content widely with everyone and anyone who will find it useful and nourishing. Thank you very much for making this a success. And thank you to both of you for joining me.
Thank you.